Welcome to That's a Wrap. My name is Case. This is the show where we talk about everything film related. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about the Academy Awards and film budgets. With me again today, I have my two guests here. We have Matt Bennett, who is an associate professor here at the University of Cincinnati's Blue Ash branch, as well as Aaron Bates, who is the regional manager at the Danbury Cinemas. Guys, thanks so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, start things off. First question. Let's see, motion picture. How has it changed since, it was first developed in the late 19th, early 20th century to today?
Well, there have been a lot of changes. Mostly, I think, in audience savvy. The audience has become particularly literate with storytelling and visual storytelling, and so the nature of film has changed to better address the audiences.
Mm-hmm.
I think the old joke is that Hollywood was conceived to make money, and that hasn't changed, but certainly what started out as just a quick buck has turned into one of the biggest money makers for our country as an industry. So, what started out as small peep show type things have turned into giant IMAX theaters. So it's a funny progression, but yeah, started out just to make money like anything else. They actually didn't see any future in. They didn't think it was going to last very long, and it's been 100 years, and it's still here, still making money.
Man, it's just a fad.
Okay, so then why would someone go see a film in the theaters today? Like, what attracts moviegoers?
I think anymore, because we have such a slick home entertainment plateau that we sit on. There's so much stuff now available at home that it takes a lot for people to go out. So I think that's why we have things like IMAX and 3D. But I think the one thing that kind of that keeps audiences coming back year after year and decade after decade is literally just the group experience. You can sit on your couch and watch a comedy, but if you sit in a room with 50 people, the whole dynamic of your experience changes. And I think people like that. They like to be scared, they like to laugh, and they like to cry in a group setting. And there's this strange thing where you're sitting in the dark with strangers, and somehow this is a very enjoyable experience.
In what ways can films be an escape into different lives? It's kind of a deep question. You can think for a minute if you need it.
I think everybody is always interested in something that they're not used to. One of the things I remember when I was at college studying film was it's always more interesting to watch somebody doing something that you have no idea what they're doing than having them explain it. And I think that a lot of locations and behaviors and things that people do in movies are things that we are watching and we're stimulated because this is, I don't know, I've never seen this before. I don't know what this is like. I've never been to this place. So those things are all what keeps us coming.
Sure.
And film, by its nature, it encourages an audience to participate. The camera is an eye, the mic is an ear on the set, and so it provides a point of view on the story that the audience naturally shares based on the positioning and the framing of that camera and what the mic's picking up. So people are drawn to get involved in the stories that are being told on film.
Escaping into movies, do you think it can sometimes be a bad thing?
I think that there's something you learn as you get older that applies to both movies and music, and that is people tend to wreck their personal lives when they try to imitate something they've seen on screen. They think that somehow, you listen to love songs, it's like the worst instruction manual for a relationship, but yet that's what we do.
For some of us, there are topics that we only learn about through film. I will never have the experience of World War II. My image of World War II is from Saving Private Ryan and all the other films before it. And so, I feel like I've learned history through that, however misguided or however inaccurate some of those filmic representations of history are.
Okay, so how do you feel that films are judged, like for the Academy Awards? Is it based off their entertainment value, or is it more, to portray a clear message, or does it really matter?
Yeah, we were both like, that's a good question. I think it's a mixture of things.
Yeah.
I think ultimately it is honestly a combination of if the movie's good, if the movie has a message, if the studio that made the movie promoted it, heavily. There's a lot of factors. I don't think any one is the driver. I think there's several things that go into it. But at the end of the day, I think not all, but most of the Best Picture nominees are ones that caught on with people in general, I would say.
There are some films that I think were made because of the Academy Awards. You know, the studio makes an award picture because they want that glory. But I don't know that I could cite all of the qualities that go into one of those pictures, because sometimes, they're hit or miss.
Sure.
Not every film that was intended to be critically acclaimed
Right.
and receive awards is.
And do you guys feel that, blockbuster films are, necessarily Oscar bait? And if so, like why? Or, does it have to be a huge production in order to be, qualified for maybe, or at least recognized for an Oscar?
I think that those two things are often quite separate, that the blockbuster films are made for popular entertainment, they're made for box office success. They are not the kinds of films generally geared toward winning awards, and the kinds of films like fantasies, science fiction get passed over at the Academy Awards pretty frequently, and those are often the blockbuster kinds of films.
Yeah, there's exceptions. One I immediately thought of when you asked the question was Silence of the Lambs. A huge hit. It's a horror picture. But, I mean, incredibly loved, incredibly well received, and it won, I don't know how many Oscars, but Best Picture, Actor, Actress. So it's a rare thing, but usually it's not blockbusters that are in your Oscar stable.
Yeah. Okay, well, now that we're on the topic of money, let's move on to film budgets then, in general. Are films with a bigger budget necessarily more successful than films with, say, a smaller budget?
It depends on how you define success. I think that financially successful, it's difficult. If you spend a lot of money on a film, you have to make back a lot of money at the box office. And so if you're looking for financial success, sometimes those things don't equate.
I know, I can think of a couple already, but are there some pretty, big budget films that just got awful reviews, nobody liked? Like, can you name any?
Cleopatra. I wish I could remember the adjusted dollars. And it was like this colossal failure that Fox had. It put them out. Actually, they were on their way out of going out of business, basically. And then Sound of Music was opened, and it saved the company. But that Cleopatra's always been the one that I remember reading. Just that's a huge failure.
But it did at least bring Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton together. I mean,
Thank
that
goodness.
is priceless. You
Thank
can't
goodness.
put a
That's
dollar
right.
amount on
That's
that.
right.
How can films of yesterday be compared by their success and budget to films today?
I think there's no question that Hollywood used to be more frugal and penny wise. I think now it's. I don't think it's. I think there was a time when Jim Carrey. It seemed like right around the time Jim Carrey became big, there seemed to be a lot of stories in that. I guess that's the early to mid '90s. There were a lot of stories about stars and how much they got per picture. There seemed to be this sort of thing where it was almost like a status with Tom Cruise and others that they were getting $20 million a picture. And I think that that got so outrageous that I think Hollywood has dialed that back a lot. You don't even really hear that anymore like you did back in the 90s. I think things have kind of changed in that way.
How do low-budget films give new actors a chance to break out onto the silver screen? Do you think that they do?
Yeah, I think that happens occasionally, yeah. There seems to be a film about every decade that sort of kind of becomes the defining, like this is a generation of actors that came out of this, one movie. I want to say, not Rumblefish, what's the other one? The Outsiders, which gave birth to Matt Dillon and Emilio Estevez and a whole bunch of them. And then another good example was Dazed and Confused in the 90s, which had Ben Stiller and Matthew McConaughey. So yeah, I think there's always a movie that sort of comes along that'll have 2 or 3 actors in it that then go on to bigger things. But it's pretty rare.
The Soderbergh film,
Sex, Lies,
and
and Videotape.
It was responsible for launching the career of Andie MacDowell, which she sort of waned in recent years. But after that film, I think her next film was Green Card with Gerard Depardieu, this international star. Not necessarily a great film, romantic comedy, so it probably had some.
Yeah, she did Groundhog Day.
Yeah, yeah. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know who you're talking about. At first, I was just nodding my head like, oh, yeah, I know who she is. No idea. But now I do. Everybody's seen Groundhog Day. They have to. Okay, well, unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. I'd like to thank you both again for coming, but there's no really better way to say it other than that's a wrap. Thanks for watching.